Good afternoon and welcome to the Manhattan public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2016 New York City water rates. My name is Eric Landau and I will serve as this afternoon's hearing officer. I'd like to take just a minute to give a brief overview of the process for today. First, please note that we place certain documents into the official record. The notice designating me as the hearing officer, a copy of the public notice listing this hearing, and an affidavit of publication of such notice. The draft of the proposed water and wastewater rate schedule, the public information booklet regarding water and wastewater rates, a copy of which are available just outside by the registration table, and also all written statements submitted to the water board. These items are marked Exhibits 1 through Exhibit 5. In just a moment, we will hear a presentation from First Deputy Commissioner from the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, also our Executive Director of the Water Board, Steve Watts. And then we will open up the meeting to hear from you, the members of the public. Before we do that, I'd like to acknowledge and introduce DEP's Commissioner, Emily Lloyd, and DEP's Deputy Commissioner for Customer Service, Nancy Seinflon. And Nancy and other DEP staff members are on hand in case anyone has very specific questions about their personal water accounts. If you have not yet signed up to speak but would like to do so, please take a moment to do so at the registration table just outside. Please know that you can also submit any written testimony to the New York City Water Board by the close of business today. These statements will be entered into the record and copies will be distributed to the Water Board members prior to their adoption of a rate schedule for fiscal year 2016. I'd like to introduce the individuals joining me up here. First to my right, Alfonso Carney, Chairman of the New York City Water Board. And then our Water Board members, Tuan Davis, Tuan Davis, Adam Freed, Jonathan Golden, and Arlene Shaw. Joe Finnerty unfortunately could not be with us this afternoon. You've met Executive Director of the Water Board, Steve Watts, and our Treasurer, Teal McLean. Mr. Chairman, do you have anything to add before we begin?
Just a few things, if I may. I've already said at one public hearing that I don't talk as fast as Eric, so it'll take me twice as long to say half as much. Thank you very much, Eric. It is my honor and a real privilege to succeed Alan Moss as chair of the Water Board. I had the chance to work with Alan for almost 4 years on the board, and I can say without any hesitation that it's idiomatic and it's trite, but I've got some pretty big shoes to fill, and I'm going to give it my best shot. Thank you all for coming. Those of you who are here to talk to us and to ask questions could have spent your afternoons differently. We're really grateful that you chose to come and spend the time with us. We'd like to hear what you have to say after Deputy Commissioner Lawrence has made his presentation. Everybody here knows how complex the New York City water and wastewater systems are. It's the job of this board to make sure that the systems are operated, protected, and improved in a manner that is both effective and efficient. A big part of our job, therefore, is to listen to what the public has to say. And that, of course, means that we're here today to listen to what you have to say. We want to hear from you. Just for your information, this is the last of five public hearings this week. We began the week, the board began the week in Staten Island. We then went to Brooklyn. We were in the Bronx and Queens last night, and today, of course, here in Manhattan. Thank you all for coming. Let us see.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Good afternoon, everyone. I also want to thank you for coming. Can you not hear me? Okay. So, now? No. Can everyone hear me? Okay. On behalf of Commissioner Lloyd and myself, I'd like to thank you all for coming out. So, I don't talk as fast as Eric either, but I'll try to get through this quickly. The rate that's being proposed for fiscal year, which starts July 1st, is a 3.24% increase over the rates currently in effect. And what does that mean? For the typical single-family home, it would be an increase of about $33 a year, which is about $275 a month. and 8 cents a day for water and wastewater, with the typical single-family home consuming about 80,000 gallons a year. And for multifamily homes per dwelling unit, the increase per year ranges from $22 to $31. So just give you a brief overview of DEP. We're the nation's largest municipal water and wastewater utility. And here are only some of the staggering numbers for DEP. We provide 1.1 billion gallons, per day to over 9 million people. That's the entire city of New York, and another million residents upstate through our wholesale customers. So we provide drinking water to half the population of New York State. And we do that through a 2,000 square mile watershed. And we have 7,000 miles of water mains just in the city. And we also are responsible for maintaining 110,000 fire hydrants. On the wastewater side, when you look at DEP as a whole, about 40% of our system, of our costs, are the drinking water side. About 60% is the wastewater side. Wastewater side, we treat about 1.2 billion gallons of wastewater, so that's everything you consume on the drinking water side, plus the storm water. We operate 14 wastewater treatment plants throughout the city, across the 5 boroughs. And to get the wastewater to the treatment plants, we operate and maintain 96 pumping stations and 7,400 miles of sewers and 148,000 catch basins. More catch basins in New York City than most cities have people. What are the major drivers of costs of this very big system? And we'll go through these in some detail in the next few slides. We have mandates, aging infrastructure, systems that are not yet built but need to be, and we need to come to grips with climate change. And under the mandates, we have the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act. We have aging infrastructure going back to the 1840s when fresh water was brought to New York City from upstate for the first time. When there's a water main break, and there are 2 to 3 of them per day, if they break in Manhattan, often you'll see that the age of the main is 1870. And we have sewers that are installed around the same time. And we have water tunnel number 1, which was built in 1917, and it has been in continuous service ever since. We'll get to what we're building out in the capital program to complete our incomplete systems. And then we have to deal with climate change, intensive storms, the fact that our wastewater treatment plants are all near the coast. And we have to deal with periods of heavy rainfall and drought. So on the drinking water side, we have, and we're governed by the Safe Drinking Water Act, which was enacted in 1974. And among other things, it requires that we protect the water system and you, our customers, and the rest of the public from any pathogens in the water, including cryptosporidium and giardia. And to protect against those, we've required some of our biggest capital investments, the Croton filtration plant, and the ultraviolet drinking water treatment plant, which is in Westchester County. The Croton filtration plant is built 10 stories below Van Cortlandt Park. That's the driving range you see on top. That you won't be able to see the filtration plant. When it's complete, you'll just see the driveway. And a filtration avoidance program to keep the west of Hudson water supply pure and enable us to continue to avoid filtering that. But these are expensive programs. These 3 programs together have cost over $6 billion. And on the wastewater side, we want to continue to clean up the harbor. And the Clean Water Act from 1972 regulates the wastewater highly. And the goal is to make all of the waters surrounding in New York suitable for swimming and fishing. Some of our biggest projects are the $5 billion upgrade to the Newtown Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant, our largest plant, nitrogen removal at our plants, and long-term control plans to minimize the combined sewer overflows into the tributaries around the New York Harbor area. The long-term control plans alone over the next 10 years will require about $1.2 billion in investment. But it's provided a great benefit to the quality of the harbor water in the New York area in just the last 28 years. We've gone, as you can imagine, red is bad, yellow is almost as bad. And now, just 2 years ago, most of the water is blue. We still have some investments to make. As I said, the long-term control plan to make those remaining areas blue or at least green. And we test the water constantly, both the drinking water and the wastewater. And on the drinking water side, $21 million a year to test the water. With 5 labs, we test for 270 different parameters, and we perform over 500,000 water tests a year. And we do that on the drinking water side, not only every step of the way from our furthest away reservoirs to in-city. In-city, when you walk around and you see something that looks like a gray traffic signal control box about 4 feet up from the sidewalk. That's a drinking water sampling station. And so we have those all around the city, and those are where we take most of our 500,000 tests a year. And on the wastewater side, then nearly 6 million a year to test the water. We have labs at our wastewater treatment plants, and as you can see in the photo, we have our own fleet of boats that go out into the harbor and take water samples from there. Aging infrastructure, city water tunnel number 3 on the right, which is, the tunnel itself is complete. We've spent $5 billion on that so far. And when the Brooklyn Queens portion is fully complete, we have 2 shafts left to construct there and connecting it to the local water distribution system. Then that will allow us to take City Water Tunnel number 1 out of service. Again, City Water Tunnel number 1 has been in continuous service since 1917, and it would be nice to get inside there and inspect it. The Delaware Aqueduct, which carries half of New York City's drinking water, leaks, depending on the flow, up to 30 million gallons a day. And we have a project in our capital program to build a 2.5-mile bypass tunnel around the leaking section so we can ensure the continued delivery of water to New York. Strengthening our dams. Gilboa, which we just did a major rehabilitation project for over $200 million. It will be complete this July, and in our 10-year capital program, we're going to perform a similar upgrading of our Ashokan Dam. And water mains, we have 7,000 miles of water mains, many of them are cast iron, over 100 years old, and we have an accelerated program. We traditionally spent about $100 million a year on water mains, and now we're spending $200 million. And we're coordinating even more than ever with the gas utilities to make sure that as we replace our water mains, they're also, the priority is where there are also the oldest gas mains, and we can eliminate those vulnerabilities in the most efficient way. And in terms of building out the portions of the system that aren't yet complete, the Kensico Eastview Tunnel, which is in our capital plan for about $500 million, and that will provide redundancy from the Kensico Reservoir, which is where the water coming from west of Hudson resides before going to our ultraviolet disinfection plant. Right now, we only have one of our two aqueducts that goes from Kensico to the treatment plant, and we need to have redundancy in case one of the aqueducts has to be taken out of service. We'll be able to continue to treat the water without interruption. And we have literally billions of dollars in our 10-year capital program for building out sewers in Southeast Queens, Southern Brooklyn, Staten Island, places where unfortunately the housing was built before the sewer infrastructure, particularly the storm sewer infrastructure, was built. And we're going to continue our very large program in Staten Island to build Blue Belts, which is probably the largest green infrastructure project we have to capture and naturally filter the storm water through a series of engineered but natural water courses before it goes out to the harbor. So how much has all this cost us? These are our capital expenditures going all the way back to 1985, which is when the Water Finance Authority was created to sell all of the bonds needed to fund DEP's infrastructure needs. The bright colors on the right, the right half of this pie, are mandated projects. They're required by our regulators, by those two federal acts I mentioned, and they account for nearly half, $18 billion of the $39 billion. And then the more muted colors on the left are the non-mandated, but still in our opinion necessary projects that account for 53% or 20 to $21 billion. So $39 billion of investment since 1985, and we're paying the principal and the interest on most of that. Well, let's talk about the rate itself for a minute. We have a chart here that shows in the muted gray lines in the background, we have the 30 large cities in the U.S. and we've highlighted cities that are at the extremes and that are also like us in that they are large, old cities. And so while you see a similar trend of a constantly increasing set of rates, New York, which has historically been below the average of these 30 large cities, has been, because of all these investments we just mentioned, we're climbing up. We had been further below the average for a number of years, but now we're just below the average. And if you look at the average annual rates of increase on the right, our rate of increase at about 6.8% per year is a little bit above the average for these 30 cities at 6.3%. Where does that leave us? as of the rates that are in effect right now across the country, we're a little bit below the average, as I just said. So we're just a little bit to the right of the middle of these 30 cities. But again, $1,048 per year for the average single-family home. Water and wastewater combined is the national average. We're right now at $1,025. And as has been the case for a long time, the water rate in New York City is one of the only, or the only, major component of the cost of living in New York City that, or the cost of living that is lower in New York City than it is in the rest of the country for the 30 large cities. So the cost of housing in New York, far above the national average, electricity, natural gas, and so on, they're all above the national average. New York water rates, 2% below the average. But it's not just about the money, it's also what service can we provide to our customers. And we've made big investments in that, both in terms of training our customer service staff to serve you better, but we've made a huge investment in technology, $250 million to install automated meter reading. We've reduced our rate of estimated billing by 81% as a result of that system. The chart shows that we used to have close to 20% of our bills estimated, and we're now down to 3%, which is performing right along with the top water utilities. And as importantly, it's reduced customer complaints by 56% because customers can go online and see their water consumption in near real time, so they see the same things that we do. It's also enabled us to mine the technology to bring a number of improvements to customers, including automated leak notification, and we've been able to notify 77,000 customers that they may have a leak, and that's saved them collectively $64 million, or about $830 each, because when you have a leak, even if it's what you think is a small leak in your toilet, it can become very expensive very quickly. We also liberalized our leak forgiveness program. We, until last year, did not forgive the extraordinary cost of leaks for maintainable fixtures like toilets and sinks, faucets, but we liberalized that last year, and those customers, about 1,500 in the last year, who have benefited from that program, saving about $1,000 each. And finally, we rolled out 2 years ago the service line protection program, and we've had enormous enthusiasm about it from our customers, and 177,000 of them have signed up, and they pay about $144 a year in premiums, but if they have a covered repair, it's covered at no additional cost, and if your water service line or if your sewer service line breaks, it can cost tens of thousands of dollars to repair. So this has been a very popular program. Another form of customer service is better response to service requests that come in through 311 or those that we spot ourselves. So catch basin complaints we're fixing 20% faster. Hydrants we're also addressing about 20% faster, and we've had 37% fewer complaints about leaking infrastructure, and we think a large part of that improvement comes from the service line protection program. Prior to that program, if someone saw a leak in the street, they would call 311 and we would have to send a crew out. Now there are at least 177,000 homeowners who, if they see a leak, they'll call our vendor on that program, American Water Resources, and they'll address the leak, and our water and sewer operations crews can spend their time fixing our own infrastructure instead of investigating leaks on private property. I've talked about the enormous capital investment we've made in the past. Let me talk about some of our prospective investment in our 10-year capital program, which at this point is $15.5 billion. Mentioned the long-term control plans previously, the Delaware Aqueduct bypass, green infrastructure, almost $900 million, and we'll have more on that in a minute. $640 million on energy efficiency, and building out our infrastructure to serve rezoned and developing areas like Coney Island, and also areas that never had the infrastructure in the first place, like Southeast Queens. And I mentioned these others. So, in the borough of Manhattan specifically, two of our larger projects at our wastewater treatment plants, Ward's Island, that is in Manhattan technically, $250 million to upgrade the plant. At our North River plant on the Hudson River, between 135th and 145th Streets, $182 million to install cogeneration, which will use the gas that's produced by the wastewater treatment process, the digestion process. It'll return that gas to run engines to produce electricity to run the wastewater treatment process. So it's a nice closed system that will reduce our energy footprint. And altogether in the borough of Manhattan, we expect to spend about $1.2 billion a year. And we'll be spending monies in addition to that, monies that are currently categorized as citywide projects for water mains and sewers, but eventually will flow to Manhattan. Also a big part of our capital program are projects to support the mayor's recently announced plan that he announced on Earth Day last week, One NYC. Part of that includes building out the storm sewer infrastructure in Southeast Queens, reducing flooding, building out the blue belts, and flooding elsewhere in the city. Green infrastructure, as I said, nearly $900 million. 9,000 of these bioswales, enhanced tree pits, which are engineered to draw water off of the roadway and have it absorbed through stone and gravel and detain the water so that it doesn't overload our wastewater treatment plants, and so we can reduce the number of combined sewer overflows into the harbor. And working with the Parks Department on their Community Parks Initiative, and with the schools and the Trust for Public Land. And here's an example of PS 261 in downtown Brooklyn. Before it was just pavement, and now it's this. In the interest of full disclosure, my 3 children all went to PS 261. It had nothing to do with the selection. I was surprised as you are. And my youngest is now 23 years old, so she went there a long time. We talked about our $39 billion in past capital investment, but looking forward, again, we plan to spend at least $15.5 billion over the next 10 years. We commit the projects, the black bars. So every time we let a contract, and we let a contract, let's say, for $100 million, we lock up that money so it can't be used on other projects. Most of our projects span several years, so as those years elapse and as the construction crews do their work and we have to spend money, the blue bars are the expenditures, and it's the expenditures that require us to float bonds through the Water Finance Authority and paying the debt service on those bonds is the red line, which is going steadily up, except in this year it took a dip in 2015 because our partners at the Water Finance Authority have very aggressively taken advantage of the low interest rates on bonds. So they've refinanced older debt, and they've retired debt that was at high interest rates. That debt that they can buy back before it's fully mature, they do. And so we've actually been able, for the first time ever, to have this year be smaller than the year before. But we don't expect that trend to continue, and the challenge to us is continuing to fund our massive infrastructure needs, keeping our debt service costs low, looking at opportunities to fund more of our capital program with cash, and continuing to take advantage of favorable interest rates. So what does it cost to run this system in the year? $3.85 billion. And the largest single slice of the pie, debt service at 44%, operations and maintenance, 38%. Those two slices used to be flipped until about 4 years ago. Operations used to be the biggest slice, debt service the second biggest. So that is also a concern of ours. But when you look at our finances for this year compared to next year, see, we expect that service to increase because we forecast our interest rates conservatively. We've benefited greatly from the low interest rate debt market, but we don't know that that will always be the case. We are buying back, as I said, $800 million of older, more expensive debt. Next year, we're planning to buy back a smaller amount, but if the opportunity arises, we'll certainly look to buy back more. Operations and maintenance is increasing a bit because of recently settled labor agreements, because we're operating the Croton filtration plant. It's been under construction since approximately 2005, and it will go into operation by May 17th, just a little more than 2 weeks from now. But it'll cost money to operate it. The rental payment, which is determined by our lease with the city as 15% of the Water Finance Authority's debt service. We'll go into that in a minute. And so when you go to the bottom, or the 3 rows from the bottom, we are actually, the total system costs are expected to decrease slightly from $3.88 billion to $3.85. Our year-end cash on hand, which is a substantial sum, the Government Finance Officers Association recommends that a utility like ours have a year-end cash balance that's at least 15% of the total pie. Ours is about 24% because we want to make sure we have extra coverage in case some big emergency happens, like we had to do a major emergency repair of Bilboa Dam 9 years ago. We had hurricanes, as you may recall, in 2011 and 2012. And so we feel it's prudent to keep a large cash balance on hand. And so where does that leave us in terms of the rate proposal? As you saw on the previous page, we are projecting total system costs next year of $4.77 billion. We deduct the year-end cash balance, which we use to pay debt service as soon as the new fiscal year begins. We deduct the revenue that we get from upstate and other non-recurring revenue, or non-city revenue. And we're getting $41 million back from the rental that we pay to the city. Under Mayor de Blasio, he has increased the amount of the city's rental payment that gets returned to the system. And so that leaves us with a revenue need in that yellow cell of 3.64 billion. But if you look at the amount that we expect to end the year with, which is the orange cell to its left, 3.58 billion, that's how much revenue we expect to collect through June 30th of this year. We, fortunately, on the one hand, for conservation purposes, we've been experiencing a long-term decline of consumption of drinking water. It's been hovering around 1.5% a year. Right now, we're at about 1.2%, and we expect that trend to continue next year. And so we're, as a result, we will we'll be selling fewer gallons of water and collecting less revenue as a result. So if we didn't have a rate increase at all, and we allowed for the reduction in consumption, we would end the year at 3.52 billion. What we said in the yellow square above, we need 3.64. That's a gap of 114 million, which translates to 3.24. But we're not just raising the rates, we're also providing additional services to many of our customers. Last year, we introduced the Home Water Assistance Program, which gave relief on their water bills to about 12,500 homeowners whose incomes qualified them for the federal Home Energy Assistance Program. So we have that HEAP universe of homeowners, and they automatically get a credit of $116 on their water bill, which is 1/4's worth of, that is 3 months worth of a water bill at the minimum charge. So it equates to the minimum charge for people who consume less than 100 gallons a day. This year, we're greatly expanding that program, and we'll automatically apply that same credit of $116 to those who qualify for either the senior citizen or the disabled homeowner exemptions on their city property taxes. And that will bring an additional 46,500 homes into the program for a total of 59,000 homes, which is about 7% of our customers. Last year, we froze the minimum charge for those who consume small quantities of water. This year, we're freezing it again. So it's been frozen at, as I said, $1.27 a day or $116 per quarter. It'll be frozen at that level for the 3rd consecutive year. The Service Line Protection Program, which has 177,000 subscribers, the rates that those subscribers pay will be frozen at their current levels. And we're going to provide a $10 credit to those customers who elect to enroll in electronic monthly billing. We are going to offer monthly billing, whether electronic or traditional paper, to any of our customers who choose to opt in. But we want to entice customers to the more environmentally responsible and less expensive e-billing, and so we'll give them a $10 credit to do so. So again, just a reminder, a 3.24% rate increase, and this is the last hearing, as Eric said, but if you want to submit comments, you can do so now, and you can submit them up until 5 p.m. today, and there's the email address, nycwaterboard@dep.nyc.gov. Back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Steve. Now we're going to open up the floor to comments from the public. Again, if you would like to speak and have not yet signed up to do so, please Please feel free to do so at any time. We ask that everyone keep their remarks to no more than 5 minutes. We want to make sure that everyone that wants to speak has enough time to speak. So please keep that in mind. And with that, I'd like to call on the first speaker, and let me apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. The first speaker is Vito Signorelli. Did I get that right?
Perfect.
Fantastic.
Before I begin, can I hand in testimony?
You can either now or after, and we'll take it for the record.
It's your choice.
Good afternoon, Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Vito Signorelli. I am the Director of Communications at the Rent Stabilization Association, and I'm here on behalf of Jack Freund, Executive Vice President of the Rent Stabilization Association. On behalf of the members of the RSA, who own or manage nearly 1 million units of affordable housing throughout New York City, we appreciate the opportunity to comment on the proposed water and sewer rate effective July 1, 2015. For the second year in a row, the City Water Board is considering the lowest water and sewer rate increases since fiscal year 2006. In fact, at 3.24%, the proposed rate for FY 2016 is even lower than the approved rate of 3.35 from FY 2015. This is certainly a major relief from the incredibly high rates that property owners were faced between FY 2007 and 2014. Although the latest proposed rate may seem appealing because it is the lowest in the last 10 years, the reality is that water and sewer rates have still increased 168.35% over the last 13 years and increased 165% alone during the Bloomberg administration. When Mayor Bill de Blasio campaigned to become mayor, he publicly spoke about water and sewer rate increases as a hidden tax. Despite the campaign pledges, this will be the second year under the de Blasio administration that rates will increase. Mayor de Blasio also vowed to eliminate the rental payment from the water board to the city, and despite returning $22 million last year and vowing to return an additional $31 million this year, he still has not done so. Even the mayor's new rental payment projections, revised under public pressure, would maintain the rental payment for another 10 years, although at reduced levels. There is simply no excuse for the rental payment not to be entirely eliminated this year, not in the distant future. If the mayor had eliminated the rental payment as he campaigned to do, there would be no need for a rate increase this year. Instead, the rental payment to the city continues to grow, and even under the mayor's revised plan, will still amount to $148 million in fiscal year 2019. Additionally, DEP Commissioner Emily Lloyd reported that agency revenues are expected to increase approximately $82 million, while operational costs have decreased nearly $71 million. Despite these favorable numbers, the DEP and the de Blasio administration continue to justify water rate increases. Another increase in water and sewer rates is just another burden placed on small property owners who are dealing with ever-increasing property taxes, insurance, and building maintenance costs. The rental payment is not the only backdoor tax that the city levies on the water and sewer system. Each year, the city charges the water and sewer system for millions of dollars in services rendered by other city agencies. In addition, the city benefits from millions more expanding by the water and sewer system for community improvements in conjunction with DEP capital projects. The Water Board has a fiduciary responsibility to recapture these additional expenditures paid for by the water and sewer ratepayers, but not directly related to sustaining the water and sewer system. If this proposed rate is approved, it will increase the flat rate water and sewer charge from $1,027 to $1,060 per year per apartment, and the average meter bill will increase from $700 to $723 per apartment per year. In addition, owners were issued the smallest rent increase in city history last year, at 1% for one-year leases and 2.75% for two-year leases. This year, the City Rent Guidelines Board is once again considering a rent freeze, and the likelihood of that happening is much higher than last year. With water and sewer rates as well as other building operating costs increasing, it will become incredibly challenging for building owners to provide proper maintenance to their buildings moving forward. We acknowledge that the proposed rate for FY 2016 is the lowest in a decade. However, these yearly increases will continue a pattern of unsustainable cost increases for the city's affordable housing stock. Because the vast majority of RSA's members operate rent-regulated buildings, we know that last year's minimal increases and this year's impending rent freeze will make it more difficult for the owners of the affordable housing stock to continue to provide their tenants with an adequate living environment. It is imperative that DEP and the Water Board find some way to shelter affordable housing from these yearly rate increases. With DEP revenue increasing and agency operating costs decreasing the availability of rental payment excesses, there is no longer justification for another water and sewer rate increase. It is time for Mayor de Blasio to live up to his campaign promise that will help the true providers of the city's affordable housing, the small property owners. I urge the Water Board to continue working with Mayor de Blasio in attempts to finally relieve the rental payment given to the city every year. Perhaps then property owners will see relief from increasing rates. On behalf of the 25,000 property owners that we represent, the RSA does appreciate the dramatic decrease in water and sewer rates the last 2 years. However, for the sake of the future city affordable housing stock, we hope for better progress in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Simeon Honey.
Just a handout. Here you can, this is some charts that I'm going to be. There are 5 of them, but you can pass it.
Okay.
Hi, well, good afternoon, and thanks very much for having me here today. I wanted to talk a little bit about fluoridated water, and I'm just going to talk in brief about the history of where water fluoridation comes from, what some of the most recent data show, and some of the possibilities. In the early 1940s, New York City was the center of a top-secret special access program called the Manhattan Project, which was led by the Army's 509th Composite Group to develop atomic weapons, which were used against Japan. It was headquartered, by the way, right at the Woolworths building, right down the street from us. After the war ended, the U.S. government wanted to create a better image for its nuclear program as a whole, and this was known as creating dual-use technologies with both military and civilian applications. And you can read about this in Angela Krieger's recent book, Life Atomic. The first effort was to develop peaceful uses for atomic materials in the form of medical radioisotopes, and these were used in ecological and human tracer experiments, some of which remained classified until President Clinton ordered them declassified in 1998. The second was to create a better image of fluoride, which was needed in large quantities to produce atomic weapons. You need about 6 tons of fluoride gas for every ton of uranium. The military was actually afraid of a fluoride shortage, and both the radioisotope and fluoride programs originated at the University of Rochester, and some of the same individuals worked in both programs. Workers and farmers near metal smelting plants, had suffered physical health effects from exposure to fluoride. It's the most reactive chemical known. And scientists at Columbia University were also affected, were working for the Manhattan Project. The idea was hatched to use it as a tooth hardener after it was observed by Trendley Dean working for the U.S. Health Service, Public Health Service, that communities with higher levels of natural fluoride in their water had both higher levels of disfigured and mottled enamel from dental fluorosis and also a lower incidence of cavities. Dean was against adding fluoride to drinking water. It was first done in Grand Rapids, Michigan in 1945. Now, recent research shows that we've underestimated the risks of dental fluorosis. In fact, there's been a lot of evidence for this just in the past year or so. In fact, just this week, the Department of Health and Human Services at the federal level suggested lowering the amounts of fluoride in drinking water to a maximum of 0.7 parts per million, down from 1.2 parts per million as a maximum dosage. That was just on Monday. New research links fluoride to lower IQ, thyroid issues, ADHD, and just last year, the British medical journal, The Lancet, classified fluoride as one of the top 10 neurotoxins on the planet. And last year, the country of Israel completely banned drinking water fluoridation based on some of this evidence, leaving only a handful of countries that still do so. The evidence that fluoride is beneficial for dental health is at best marginal, and at this point it's quite old. New studies suggest that we should use more caution, and we no longer put lead in gasoline, use DDT, asbestos, fluorocarbons in spray cans or refrigerators, or give women unnecessary amounts of mammograms, because we've realized that some of the harms exceed the benefits. And the study that was done in Great Britain, I believe it was 2004, the University of York study, said that after looking at all the evidence to support water fluoridation, they said it was just basically of poor quality, any of the evidence that showed a beneficial effect, and they couldn't recommend, based on their study, that this study be used to recommend using water fluoridation. Proponents of water fluoridation often tout the claims that for every $1 invested in community water fluoridation, it saves $38 in dental costs. And you can see the last page of the handout there. This misleading claim was recently shown to be false by Coe and Thiessen in an article published just last month in the Journal of Occupational Hazards, I believe, something like that. They actually showed that the best case scenario is only $3 savings to one. But when you include the cost of dental fluorosis, it's a negative cost benefit. Basically what they said is that the cost of maintaining the fluoridation equipment at the water plant itself, the water treatment plant itself, because this has to replace every 10 years or so, it lowers the benefit to $3 per one. But if you add in the cost of dental veneers over the cost of a lifetime to an individual, about $4,000, it's actually a negative cost benefit. But we've heard this claim for 30 or 40 years, and it's simply not true. In 1998, due to the health risks, over 1,500 union scientists at the EPA signed a petition against community water fluoridation. And in 2006, the National Research Council, which is part of the National Academy of Sciences, concluded that the benefits of fluoride are mainly topical rather than systemic. That is, applied to teeth directly in terms of gels and toothpaste, which is also actually what the CDC concluded in 1999. And recent research shows that the fluoride products added to our water now come from China, contain many heavy metals like lead and cadmium, as well as uranium and arsenic, some of which are toxic even in small quantities. Now, if you look at the first page of the handout, a look at the dental health in communities in Western countries from 1960s to 2005 show that countries that don't fluoridate their water have improved their dental health even faster than those who do. This is from World Health Organization. And
Mr. Hine, about how much more do you have?
About 30 seconds.
Okay.
Okay. In 2012, I wrote to Science magazine to ask them to look at that in response to an article about the history of dental health, and it was an article about why dental health has gotten better. Actually gotten worse in the past couple of thousand years, but improved over the last 50 years. And they concluded, Science magazine agreed, water in most European nations is not fluoridated, and European improvements in public dental health from the 1970s to the present have matched or even exceeded those of the United States. Reasons include fluoridated toothpastes, which became widely available in the 1970s, and changing criteria for diagnosing caries. Basically, they're saying that what's effective now, similarly to the CDC and the National Research Council, the benefits from fluoride are topical. It's no longer considered to be effective at a systemic level. So in summary, we just need to reconsider I think we need to reconsider the whole fluoridation policy that we have in many cities. I know I was born here in 1963 and New York City started in 1965. And it contains risks that we should examine more carefully. It's especially dangerous to low-income communities, the elderly and infants, groups which are more susceptible to the negative effects of these chemicals. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder again, we ask everyone to keep their remarks to within 5 minutes. Next is Robin Warwick.
I'm going to do something different today. I'm here against fluoride as well. I'm going to use the whiteboard. How much do we spend on fluoridation? For the stuff. For this stuff. 2.9. So this is the stuff that we put in, I think. This is the stuff that we put in. It's highly toxic, dangerous, poison, do not take internally. I'll pass this around. Okay. So it's 2.6 million.
29.
Sorry, 2.9 million. Because in 2009 it was, I was told it was 5 million, but we've got it down to 2.9 million, right? I used to teach very briefly. There's 1 million school kids, school-age children. in New York City, which is pretty crazy. There's only 1 million people in Adelaide, is where I'm from. There's a million school kids. Each one of them, there's 40% of them are affected by fluorosis, which now the, I think it's Department of Health or something, HHS, said we've got to stop that, so we're going to drop it down to 0.7 parts per million. 0.7 parts per million. It used to be up to 4 parts per million. Each year they're like, you know what, 4 is too much, let's drop it down to 2. 2 is too much, let's drop it down to 1.2. Now it's 0.7. This is not safe, even. So it's 0.7 parts per million. So you guys dump in you spend $2.9 million on stuff that's not effective, not safe. It destroys your piping. It's corrosive. On that sheet you look around, it's corrosive. Do you know how much money it spends on having to redo the pipes? Is that information available? Has there been any studies in New York City showing that fluoride increases the level of lead being leached out of the pipes? So we have problems with lead. We have problems with fluoride. Fluoride reacts with lead. It's a synergistic relationship. By the way, my bachelor degree is in toxicology. So I know a little bit about values. I don't know a lot, but I know a little bit. So anyway, we've got 1 million kids. So 40% of those kids, they have, a mild form of fluorosis is not bad, but it's actually tacky teeth. Teeth, they're hard. They're not soft little, it's not tissue that's easily damaged, it's teeth. You can put your weight on teeth. You can bite something, hold yourself up with the teeth. Fluoride is so corrosive, it gets into your teeth. They used to say it was an adverse health effect in the 50s, I think. By the time it got to now, I don't remember who it was, but it's just a little cosmetic effect. How much do Americans rely on good teeth? You ever see anybody on TV with bit of fluorosis on their teeth? You don't see anybody on TV like that. In Australia and Britain you do, but in America, it's very important, your teeth, right? It's very hard to get a job without having, if you've got bad teeth, people's got your teeth, so get a good job. Anyway, so back to the money part, just for you guys, like you're here to make money, right? You don't want to lose money. You're losing money on this. You're spending $2.9 million. Why? It's not cost effective. It doesn't help. Please think about, also the New York Department of Health, and I think it's Department of Dental Health, not really the Department of Health, they want to increase it by 10%. There's no studies out there showing that it helps, yet they want to increase it. I don't know why they want to increase it. It doesn't make any sense, except that dentists and all your dentists make money out of fluoridation, right? Colgate gives money to the Dental Association to run studies. It's a little bit iffy. So I don't really know why they're pushing it so hard, but they shouldn't be, and you guys got to get it out of the water. Thanks.
Thank you, Ford.
Thank you. The next speaker is Eric Goldstein.
Good afternoon, Chairman Carney, members of the board, Commissioner Lloyd. My name is Eric Goldstein with the Natural Resources Defense Council. As most of you know, we're a national nonprofit environmental organization active on New York environmental and health and natural resource issues since 1970. My colleague Larry Levine and I will submit a detailed statement later today. In short, NRDC is supportive of the department's broad goals and objectives in advancing this proposed rate increase and moving forward with the capital and operating programs to provide safe, sufficient, and reasonably priced water for all New Yorkers. At the same time, as we've noted in previous appearances before this board, we believe that reforms are necessary to the city's water rate structure if New York City wants to secure its position as a national leader in terms of sustainable water policies in the 21st century. I'll quickly summarize 5 of our main points. NRDC, as noted above, is generally supportive of the department's proposed water rate increase. We support a 3% water rate increase this year in recognition of the department's ongoing capital and operating needs, which are enormous in running the nation's largest municipal water supply. We appreciate the fact that the proposal for a 3.24% increase is the lowest in years. We're supportive of many of the progressive changes set forth in the water rate schedule. In particular, we support the continuation of a freeze on rate customers who use less than approximately 100 gallons a day. We also applaud the proposed expansion of the 116 assistance credit for the pool of 59,000 low-income senior or disabled customers who qualify either for the Federal Energy Assistance Program or for city tax exemptions. The level of DEP capital spending has been high over the past decade, but we believe that those projects and the continued debt payments that have funded them have been essential to the long-term protection and enhancement of the city's water supply. Croton Water Filtration Plant, the Eastview Ultraviolet Disinfection Facility, the Delaware Aqueduct Bypass Tunnel, and major clean water projects like upgrades to the wastewater treatment plants and investments in green and gray infrastructure. All of these are essential city projects. In addition, we want to stress the importance of the city's ongoing watershed protection program. If we want to avoid the costs of a $10 to $15 billion filtration project for the Catskill and Delaware system, we need to continue to invest in upstate watershed protection efforts, including the watershed land acquisition program. These are unprecedented investments by the city of New York. While most of them aren't visible to the public, they're nevertheless indispensable to the city's future. We continue to wish, however, that DEP would stop referring to its expenditures as being made in response to mandates. The Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act aren't undesirable mandates foisted on municipalities for unimportant reasons. They are landmark statutes designed to protect public health and environmental quality, and they're a major part of the reason why New York City has such high-quality water today. We believe all of this vital work could be accomplished with a 3% increase or less if the Water Board to make the changes we recommend below, and we'll quickly summarize our 4 final points. 1, NRDC endorses a speedier phase out of the water sewer system rental payments. It's an arcane and antiquated policy, and city water ratepayers are paying a rental payment in connection with the lease of the water and sewer system. This amounts to a regressive tax on city water ratepayers. To be sure, the de Blasio administration proposes to refund a portion of this payment, but still, $200 million of water and sewer funds will be used for non-water and sewer related purposes this year. We urge the Water Board to work with the administration to develop a plan for a phase out of the rental payments over the next 4 years. 2, NRDC urges the Water Board to analyze and adopt a system of tiered water rates. We urge the Board to analyze and ultimately adopt tiered water rates in which water charges would be higher for large volume users and will allow most residential users to pay lower per gallon rates. This approach, which has been followed by other water authorities around the country, would incentivize conservation among the system's largest users. It would also help keep rates lower for most residential users who, as the Water Board knows, have faced significant increases in water rates over the past decade. 3rd, NRDC opposes the continuation of the combined wastewater-stormwater charge and recommends that the Water Board separate out stormwater charges. As we've said in previous years, we're still urging reform of wastewater and stormwater charges so as to incentivize better control of stormwater runoff, which is the city's #1 water quality problem today. The current approach continues a rate structure of wastewater and stormwater as a single fee. And while that makes perfect sense for wastewater charges, it's irrational and inequitable for stormwater. We say this because metered water usage bears no relationship to the volume of stormwater runoff from a customer's property that must be handled by the city's overburdened sewer system. We hope we can work with the board and the department and DEP to make this change happen in the coming fiscal year. Finally, we support expanded use of conservation incentives. We urge the resumption of the city's low-flow toilet rebate program, urge that it may be made available to all property owners. We also support the recommendations of the University Neighborhood Housing Program to explore rebates or other financial incentives for multifamily buildings, especially affordable housing, to retrofit water and energy-efficient boilers and washing machines. We're encouraged by the language of the One NYC plan indicating that, quote, DEP will continue to develop rates that support policy goals and will invest in the technology to support innovative fee structures. But we're ready for action. That's what city water ratepayers deserve, and if the Water Board and DEP take steps this year to move on the recommendations that we outline in our written statement, it would make the city more sustainable, more equitable, and bring the Water Board in sync with the overarching goals of One NYC. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is William Rogers.
Thank you very much. appreciate having the opportunity to address you today. I have a question, actually, to the board. Again, my name is William Rogers, and I serve as the chairman for the MWBE Committee for the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, and I also consult the Harlem News Group on issues of MWBEs, which is Minority Women Business Enterprises. Recently, well, not recently, about 2 years ago, the state undertook a very aggressive initiative to address the disparities in MWBE awards as relates to contracts. Last year, the controller published a publication that gave letter grade ratings to city agencies to bring to the point of the disparities in city allocations to MWBEs. My question is, based on the 15-year predictions of service needs by the Water Board, has there been any type of investigation for creating this or addressing this issue of MWBEs? And also, if there is one, will there be any type of monitoring system set up to make sure that there's compliance to this need that has been documented, a concern by both the city and the state?
Maybe I can just address it. So, thank you for your question, sir. I'm going to talk about DEP's MWBE activity for the last year, which and illustrate how we plan to go forward in our continuing effort to expand the opportunities to award both prime contracts and subcontracts to MWBE firms. If I could address first one point you made about the controller's report from last year. I think the report you're referring to is his scorecard on city agency compliance with local law 1, which is the law that went into effect about a year and a half ago. It's the city's recent local law pertaining to MWBE compliance, and it set broad goals, including generally 30% of subcontracts should be awarded to MWBE firms. At that time, and I think DEP, along with many other agencies, got a low grade. At that time, however, because the law was new, DEP had not awarded any subcontracts under local law 1. And so I think we got a grade of 0 or F or something, but it was simply, I mean, in our case, it was that the law was so new that we didn't have any active contracts under local law 1 at that time, and we hadn't awarded any subcontracts to firms, MWBE or otherwise. More recently, in the first half of this year, we have awarded a total of $25 million worth of subcontracts to MWBE firms. All of that work is, most of that work is taking place in the city. There's a small portion of it that, because we also operate upstate, is taking place upstate, but most of that is in city and going to city certified MWBE firms. And that percentage, if you look at the percentage of subcontracts awarded or the percentage of dollars awarded, it's between 33 and 40%, which is exceeding the goals of local law 1. And our efforts are continuing to make that percentage even higher. We have a number of events taking place over the next 2 months to partner MWBE subcontractors with DEP's prime contractors to increase the opportunities for them to get to know each other and for our prime contractors to use a greater percentage of MWBE subcontractors. We're also looking at ways to restructure our projects going forward to make it a more favorable bidding climate for MWBE primes and MWBE subcontractors. For example, we have contracts which we call job order contracts. They're contracts that provide on-call construction work in a number of trades, and it's been a very good way for DEP to make emergency repairs or make small-scale improvements. We think we can create significant additional opportunities for MWBE electrical firms, for example, by reducing the size of the individual jobs contracts. Currently, we structure them on the order of $10 million or higher. But if we break it down into, for example, a series of borough-based contracts of $1 or $2 million, then we think that will increase the number of firms, especially MWB firms, that can bid on those types of contracts. So that's an example of how we intend to improve our performance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Might I add, I would be happy to help. You indicated that there would be programs coming up to develop that connection. So I will leave my information, and perhaps I can write an article or have you come to speak on my show about that. I have a radio show.
That would be terrific. We can exchange contact information.
Mr. Rogers, thank you very much for coming. I'm familiar with the work that you're doing with the Harlem Chamber from another part of my life.
Yes, I know.
Let me congratulate you on your successes, and we hope that we will build a relationship here that will satisfy your needs and mine.
Well, I think it's a mutual beneficial situation. I'll be glad to use whatever resources I have to try to enhance the communication, which is one of the issues that sometimes we find. It's not that, I mean, there are problems, but the biggest problem is a lot of times people not knowing that there are people with certain solutions to those problems.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone that has not registered to speak but would like to address the board at this time? Seeing none, before we conclude this hearing, I would like to remind you that written remarks can be submitted to the New York City Water Board either by mail, 5917 Junction Boulevard, 8th floor, Flushing, New York, or by email to the New York City Water Board, to nycwaterboard@dep.nyc.gov. Please submit any of your remarks no later than close business today. Mr. Chairman, do you have any further business?
No further business, sir.
Since we have no further business, this hearing is adjourned, and that concludes the public hearings on the FY16 water rate.